Imagine a franchise selling over 100 million copies, yet 30 to 40% of its longtime players are vocal about feeling as if they've lost their hero, claiming dissatisfaction or uninterest in engaging in the franchise's modern direction. What happened to Lara Croft? Her evolution from classic adventurer to more relatable protagonist was meant to deepen connection, but it seems to have backfired significantly. We're here to break down the design and narrative changes that make Lara quote unquote unlikable. So let's start with the classics. The original core design developed game sold over 29 million copies worldwide. This consists of Tomb Raider 1976, Tomb Raider 2, 3, Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, Tomb Raider Chronicles 2000, and then Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness 2003. So from 96 to 2003, you see a bit of a decline in the series. The original Tomb Raider 1996 with over 7 million units sold, making this the best-selling core design Tomb Raider title. It was the franchise top seller until the 2013 reboot, with Tomb Raider 2 following up 1997 with over 6.85 million units sold, followed by the third Tomb Raider 98, over 5.9 million units sold. The Last Revelation starts to decrease even more to about 4.74 million units, and then Angel of Darkness was able to bring it back up just a bit to 2.5 million units sold. Don't let me forget Chronicles, 1.5 million units sold. So without a doubt, Chronicles was the worst selling core design entry. And then you see Angel of Darkness bring it back up just that 1 mil, but it's still an overall decrease in the entire series at this point. And then at this point, production was passed to Crystal Dynamics. Core design had started to see a consistent decline, but to be fair to them, they had annual releases, so there was pressure with that. And naturally, a decrease in quality follows. Now let's talk about why the original was a success. The Survivor Trilogy consists of the Tomb Raider reboot, 2013, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and then Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The Survivor Trilogy serves as an origin story character arc for the newer Lara Croft, rebooting and reimagining her character. This entry introduces a young, inexperienced Lara, focused on survival, learning, suffering, and growth. This entry introduces base camps, allowing the use of skill trees, weapon upgrades, crafting, and a more custom roleplay experience for the player, moving away from the classics action-adventure, puzzle-solving, exploration vibe, while still linear. The later installments began leaning more on side quests and emotional tone, not only moving away from who our anti-heroic, thrill-seeking character is, but also numbing out the puzzles and overall challenge of the game. So if you're unfamiliar with the story of the reboot trilogy, you want to go ahead and fast forward to this timestamp right now, because I'm going to give a quick synopsis. No spoilers. So the first installment of the reboot has us at Laura's first expedition turned into a desperate fight for survival on the island of Yamatai after a shipwreck. Laura ends up killing cultists, experiencing supernatural phenomena, and inevitably gaining trauma in the process. A year after surviving the island, Laura now seeks the lost city of Katesh, as well as discovering secrets of immortality, a developing obsession to continue her father's work. This is when she discovers Trinity, basically a secretive organization bent on keeping knowledge and power. Rise of the Tomb Raider is when Lara begins seeking purpose and is pretty much the turning point of the series, making her more of the village's hero rather than an anti-hero. And now this leads us to Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the last installment in the Survivor Trilogy. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, our now more confident Lara travels to Maya region and Peru, where her main goal is to prevent Trinity from getting their hands on the key of Shock Shell, said to give the power of life and death. By moving the key from its place, Lara triggers cataclysmic events, mistakenly starting off the end of the world before Trinity could, causing her to deal with self-reflection and awareness, as well as responsibility that comes with what she does, referring to tomb raiding. With little clues, she seeks to the lost city of Paititi in order to right her wrongs, finally flipping her perspective from a guilt-driven adventurer into a protector, understanding that history and power is to be respected, not conquered. So back to the classic. Original Tomb Raider in 1996. Tomb Raider 1996 was a critical as well as commercial success. The original was a benchmark for 3D titles at the time and was a Computer Game Strategy Plus's overall game of the year, as well as a finalist for CNET Gamer's Best Action Game. It was praised for its graphic level design and immersive atmosphere, with Lara Croft becoming a gaming icon. Now let's talk gameplay. First of all, difficulty. This game was designed for inputs to respond to a grid-like structure, meaning that precision mattered. Every dodge, jump, or cliff hang required accuracy, which led to the immersion and tension being in the game. Misjudge, and that was your doom. Exploration. This era of Tomb Raider games called for players to become familiar with not only their own reaction time and platforming skills, but also for them to explore and get a lay of the land. You may acquire something early on in the stage that you may not need until the end, or uncover a secret that will allow you access to a door. Initially, exploration was the core of these games. Puzzles. Levels were sprawling labyrinths filled with switches, pressure plates, keys, and artifacts that open new paths. There were no objective markers or hints. Players relied entirely on memory and environmental awareness. Again, here's a feature more commonly set apart from modern games today, and that's putting gamers in situations where they'll need to develop those logical skills as well as reaction time. Slightly off topic, but more and more games were hand-holding lately, whether that be an over-highlighted path, changing the controls to fit a more modern audience, which under certain circumstances I can get, or just blatantly making it feel as if you're playing an interactive cutscene. And here's where many classic Tomb Raider fans probably begin to fall away, because gaming was just that. Skill was required to complete tasks. Puzzles weren't always highlighted for you. Saving was limited, and all these things left room for actual gratification from completion. Rewarding gamers for exploration, making you fit into your character's shoes in order to lead in a world that character was designed to live in, all causing the player to be more naturally immersed, allowing an intentional escape into the world, making you a gamer. Starting in an era where this was the formula that made gamers, you've developed skills and a type of grit that was no longer required for the Survivor Trilogy. While it is good for completion and may allow casuals to feel more included in the community, this can come off as underwhelming to more seasoned, long-term fans of the franchise. While it's always a good thing to experiment and attempt to grow your audience, it's just a fact that risks come with that. And in this case, the Survivor Trilogy split its fan base, to put it simply. And while this is unfortunate, it doesn't mean that the Survivor Trilogy was a complete failure. It simply suggests that they left a portion of their fan base behind, and on the other side, accrued one less focus on the skill-based platforming lore, but that of the more cinematic, dramatized, strongly story-focused Tomb Raider games. And that's just fine. Most data is from surveys or forums, so I can only give you a rough estimate on percentage of fans who claim to be turned off or uninterested in recent franchise releases. This ratio is roughly 2 to 5, yet this is still a significant percentage of disengaging fans. With that being said, sales show the Survivor Trilogy is commercially successful, though it did not meet expectations. The only issue is now you have a split fan base, and which is it that you choose to satisfy? Because oftentimes trying to please everyone can hurt more than help. Do you try to lean back towards our roots and introduce the old formula completely? Or do you try to find some happy medium between the both and hope for the best? My thoughts? It isn't that Lara is more disliked today, but it's more that she's unrecognized, especially by older fans. And you could argue that modern audiences may not all have experienced the original Tomb Raider games either. However, this doesn't make the Survivor series a bad idea entirely. Yes, as mentioned earlier, the changes cause a divide in the community, but that doesn't always mean bad executive decision making if the game knows what it's trying to deliver. And in this case, the Survivor Trilogy is indeed a playable experience for what it is, and that is a story-driven action roleplay for modern audiences to be able to play, as well as classic fans. Sometimes things just aren't for us, and I prefer a game to know its identity and excel at that than for it to continually bludgeon itself with tactics that are no longer working for it, if it's at least attempting to take a direction towards growth. And I think it's healthy for consumers to also understand. With all credit to them, I also think it's healthy for consumers to understand that just because something changes or isn't for you, doesn't make it a complete failure. So I just wanted to dive into the topic, having enjoyed aspects of both eras of Tomb Raider games and wanted to test and compare what the fans may have been missing. Now I ask you to comment down below your thoughts. Do you lean more to the classic side of things or more modern entries? Maybe you stand somewhere between both or have your own input. Let me know in the comment section down below, and please leave a like on this video if you'd like to see me touch up on more gaming topics so that others can get an insight and think about what they might want to see in future installments. Hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.